the Bill A. Meier interview taken in January of 1989 by myself and Billy Time and Ruby Football. We're asking him about how the first man came to be on the planet Earth.
Well, hello. We're back on the final side here of development of the psyche. We just finished up on the other side talking about what I deem power thinking. That is my term for it. The concept there was that through concentration of clear thought, we can develop a stronger will and thus become powerful thinkers where we are actually in control of our thoughts all of the time. Most people, unfortunately, are not. We are a planet of over 5 billion people, like 5,400,000,000, something like that. Most of them are not in control of their thoughts. Very few people are, as a matter of fact. Most people just go along with their conscious mind, not aware that their subconscious is even there, or what it's doing, or what kind of plans are going on. We just fall kind of the mercy of our experiences that we have. And we build up all of our emotions and attitudes and so forth, our pre-programmed responses to life. These all build up, and that's how we respond. Then we find ourselves, halfway down through the road of life, feeling depressed or negative, or things aren't going our way, and we're wondering how we're going to be successful, or we're really wondering what success is. Is it a lot of money, a lot of love, a lot of happiness? Most people can't even give you a clear answer. Unfortunately, the society we're in isn't very clear on that either. You can't really get a straight answer out of anybody. Most people, I think, would, at least in America, tend to think that a successful life would be one that has a lot of money, a lot of material things. After all, America is founded on the principle of capitalism, the idea that money rules the world, and that if you have money, you can get the stuff. If you don't have the stuff, then you're not doing very well. We see bumper stickers that say things like, he who has the most toys when he dies wins, things like that. So capitalism, or the acquirement of material thing, is greatly promoted in this country. Which one thing, it's led us to be prosperous, we call it, because we enjoy a higher quality of material life here than the rest of the world does. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are the happiest people. It doesn't necessarily mean we are the people of most love and compassion. And I think the last few years you'd find a lot of Americans questioning exactly what state we are in. We've just gone through the 1992 elections, and for the most part, the majority of the people in the United States are beginning to understand that we need change. We have to do something about our systems, our social system, our economic system, and our system of politics are not serving us currently today. And people are finding out that we're going to have to get involved to change it. And that if we don't do anything about the political system and the economic system, those that are running it for their own benefit will continue doing so, and it will keep going down the same path that it is. Well, if we want to take our country back and increase the quality of life here, we have to start getting involved, don't we? It's the same way with your own mind. If you want to increase the quality of your personal life, you have to start becoming responsible for how you think. So consequently, you will want to develop what I call power thinking. Interestingly enough, when you think, here's a concept that most of you probably haven't thought about, and I want to introduce an idea to you called the boomerang. And this is not a handheld device that you're going to throw in the air, but it works kind of like that. A boomerang, for those of you who are not real familiar with it, it's a little device that they use in Australia, and actually I think was originally designed for hunting. And it looks like a little piece of wood that's bent in the middle, so it's kind of in a V shape. And you grab one corner and throw it out real hard, and it goes out spinning in the air, and then it comes back. It hits the air, it turns around, and comes back, and you can grab it again. That's called a boomerang. So the idea is that it's something that can be sent out and come back. Well, the reason I brought this up is that thoughts can be sent out, and they do come back. Now, most of us are content to think that as we think, no one hears it, right? And it probably doesn't have any effect on anybody else. As a matter of fact, we don't know if telepathy for sure even exists. Maybe it's just something in the movies. And most of us walking around harboring all sorts of thoughts in our mind that we would be embarrassed to death to have anybody else hear. Imagine how it would change the world if suddenly tomorrow at noon, everybody on the planet was very, very telepathic and able to listen to everybody else's thoughts. Why, we'd all be scrambling like crazy to hide all of our little private stuff. Plus, we'd have to learn a whole new method of how we talk to one another, because our true feelings would really come out. I would probably eliminate politics, wouldn't it? Well, we're not all going to become telepathic tomorrow. However, our thoughts, which may be a surprise to a lot of you, do not just stay within your own mind. When you think a thought, if you may remember 8th grade science, all those little connectors inside of your brain, all those little neural connectors, dendrites, synaptic junctions, and so forth. When we make a thought, there's actually an electrical charge formed in the brain. It affects the chemicals in your body. They receive the electrical charge, and that affects all the cells in your body. But there is an electrical charge formed. So our mind does create energy, you might say, when we think there's a very small, minute charge. And depending upon the force of thought, that charge may vary in intensity. The thing here to bring out is the fact that once you create that thought, it doesn't stay just in your mind. It actually goes out into the universe. It leaves your mind, goes beyond your skull, and goes out into the universe. Now that thought, by the way, when it goes out, will return also to your mind. Now here's some interesting things. A thought, when you think it, isn't necessarily exactly what you think it is. We all have thoughts like positive and negative thoughts. We think about a positive thought is something that we think about love or happiness, or a positive thought may be a reaffirmation of our self-reliance or our confidence, or we have a positive thought about how we walk, or dress, or so forth, how we think about ourselves. Negative thoughts could be thoughts of depression, anxiety, hate, anger, and so forth. There's a lot of that in the world. Prejudice. So thoughts, when we think them, we can generally always define them as either a positive thought or a negative thought. And then right in the middle somewhere would be like neutral, where the thought really just didn't have any charge at all to it. It was just kind of a neutral thought with no positive or negative attached to it whatsoever. But for the most part, thoughts are positive and negative because everything in the universe is good and bad, moral, immoral, off and on, plus or minus, whatever. That's just the way things work. When you think a thought, and let's say it's a very positive thought, and you send it out, it goes out into the universe, whether you're aware of it or not. At a certain point, it will reach its maximum distance that it can travel by virtue of its concentration and its energy. And when it gets out there, it affects things along the way because thoughts are energy and they are perceived and felt by other subconsciouses. So that thought will go out a certain distance, and then something unique happens. It's polarized. It's kind of like a magnet. If you send a thought out, it comes back almost in an opposing form. If it's a very positive thought, it comes back in kind of a negative form. And here's what I mean by that. A thought is actually composed of two things. To begin with, a thought is composed, one, of the actual information, what you're thinking of, and two, it's composed also of the energy it took to hurl that thought out into the universe. So we have two parts here. We have the actual information or thought that you think of, and then we have the energy it took to throw that thought out into the universe. When the thought goes out, that positive thought that you've created goes out into the universe, the boomerang effect comes into place. The thought will reach its maximum distance, and it will then come back to you. It's the same thought. The thought itself doesn't change, but the energy form which is carrying it or hurling it away changes. So if it was a very positive thought, it will now be changed to a negative charge and come back into you. And that thought literally slams back into your mind. When it does then, we find that even though the information comes back the same, it's producing a slightly different effect in our mind. And when it comes back in now as a negative form with a negative charge, that means almost that this thought comes back in and forces